Now I'm back in Linux Mint 18 Cinnamon just to explore it a little bit further. I'm going to go to the System Settings and then to Desklets. And I'm going to add the clock desklet by right-clicking somewhere on that line and saying Add to Desktop. Let me get this out of the way. You can see that the clock applet appears, but it's not anywhere near what I want. So I'm going to right-click and then left-click on Configure. And you notice here it says use a custom time and date format. That gives me a 12-hour clock with AM and PM. That's a % lowercase l colon % uppercase M space %P, but I want more information on there. So I found the time and date codes on a website under GNOME Help, and I looked up more codes. But to make this brief, I wrote down what I want. So I'm going to go ahead of this. I'm going to type in %A, lowercase a, that's SUN for Sunday, space, % lowercase b for July, space, % lowercase d for the date, comma, space, % uppercase G. All right, that gives me the year. Now I move this over to where I want it. So it takes a little bit of effort, and I think if I had my way, these codes would be included with the desklet, so you didn't have to look them up. But it does show that you can configure this the way you want it with little effort. Now I'm going to do a little more configuring. I'm going to go back to System Settings and see what's available here. Under window borders, I have Mint X, Mint Y, Mint Y Dark. I think I'm going to try Mint White Dark. Under icons, I seem to have an awful lot of colors under Mint X and just green under Mint Y. Maybe I should try these Mint X blue ones. That's not the sort of thing that normally interests me very much. While I'm at it, let me open an application that I can use these on. A text editor, for instance. Under window borders I have Mint Y dark, but on the buttons I just have Mint Y. So if I click on Mint Y dark on the buttons, everything gets dark. And if I click on Mint Y darker on the buttons, the second and third lines get dark, but the main part of the window remains light. These are very hard to see here. So I'm going to go back to Mint Y on the controls. One thing I like about these window borders is we got rid of those round corners, which I really don't like at all. I just think they're a nuisance. I think this looks much better. Under desktop, we have Linux Mint right now. That's this one. See how Cinnamon differs from that. I think Cinnamon differs in that it has a transparent menu here. That doesn't appeal to me. It just makes it harder to read. So we'll go back to Linux Mint. The menu is still transparent, so that wasn't it. I really can't tell the difference between Linux Mint and Cinnamon. Perhaps the dark gray is a little lighter on Cinnamon. That must be it. It's a very imperceptible change. Now here's a Mint Y dark desktop. I can at least see the difference there. One thing, this moved over. Now we have a dark and opaque menu. I think I like this better, so I'm going to leave it that way. And I like that nice square look without the rounded corners. Now, what's going on up here? I don't know. Oh, I think that's show the screen edge or something like that. I'll have to get rid of that. As far as effects are concerned, I already turned most of them off. But if I turn them on, we'll see what happens. Effects style, cinnamon, scale, fancy scale, fade, blend, move, fly up and down. I don't know what any of that is, and I'm afraid to try. Maybe I can see some effects on these menus. They kind of sneak open. You can see a little animation in the menus. If I minimize the window, what happens? Ah, yes. Sort of animates down to the lower panel there. By the way, since my last video, I actually created another panel. I moved the default panel up to the top, took the taskbar out of it, and put a bottom panel in with the taskbar and show my desktop icon. So I've already done that. On the whole, I'm rather pleased with the way this looks. It isn't too consistent. There's no transparency with the text editor, and it has a white field, but the Mate terminal has a dark gray field and it's transparent. A little inconsistency there in the design, but on the whole it doesn't look bad. Let's see what happens when I open LibreOffice. LibreOffice Calc, for instance. It has a dark border, but a white field, and it has square corners. And rather simple icons. I'm not too wild about these icons. To me, they're not intuitive. You can't really tell what they mean in many cases. So I'll probably end up changing those, but I'm not going to change them now because that will take too much time. As much as I like this desklet that I worked on, I really like to have a plain desktop, so I'm going to get rid of it. Now I can always reinstall it, but unfortunately I'd have to go through all that configuration all over again because it doesn't save the configuration. See, it's lost all of my configuration codes. That's a possible improvement for those who work on such things. Once a person reconfigures something the way he likes it, he ought to be able to save the configuration. So I'm going to remove this again. Go back to my nice clean desktop. On the whole, I rather like this theme. Now, since Linux Mint uses the Ubuntu repositories in addition to its own repositories, the question arises, will everything that runs on Ubuntu run on Linux Mint? And of course, there are tens of thousands of applications, so I can't answer that question. I did try a couple of exotic things. One thing I wanted to know is, do snaps work in Linux Mint? And to do that, I had to install snapd. It didn't come by default with the package, but it was easy to get. All you had to do was type in the terminal sudo apt install snapd. So once snapd is installed, you can ask for help. Snap -h. This gives you a list of all the possible commands. Snap find. The list is growing longer all the time. However, I've had very bad luck both in Ubuntu and in Linux Mint getting any of these snaps actually to work. I'm going to try to install the snap package of FreeCAD. Now I'm getting a problem because the internet connection was interrupted, as it frequently is with this current network manager. Try it again. Now FreeCAD is presumably installed, so I'm going to check. Snap list. And it shows FreeCAD as being installed, along with Ubuntu Core, which you have to install any snap. So now I'm going to try to launch FreeCAD. It says the program FreeCAD is currently not installed. You can install it by typing sudo apt install FreeCAD. Yes, that's true, but that isn't the snap package. So basically, Snap doesn't work with Linux Mint, but then again, Snap doesn't work very well with Ubuntu, so that may not be a problem with Linux Mint. It's more likely just a problem with Snap. Now I'm opening Synaptic Package Manager, and I'm going to install another somewhat exotic Ubuntu program, GNOME Boxes. See if I can do it. Right. Mark for installation. Mark all of these other things. Click on apply. All right, GNOME Boxes is installed. Now we'll see if GNOME Boxes actually works. I don't know just exactly where I would find it. Click on New. I'm going to select a file, and it just so happens I only have one file on this partition, Fedora Workstation Live. Box setup failed. Box setup failed. So there's at least one Ubuntu application that does not run on Linux Mint 18 Cinnamon. This is XRAM Tech. Thanks for watching.